What is up, you amazing people? It is I, Nima, and today I want to talk about a game called To Leave. Now, this game was only like $2 on the eShop, so I thought, why not check it out? Especially because it had like a really cool backstory. You essentially were going through this young boy's traumatic past in which to move forward with his life. Now, they say like this game can be a little disturbing and a little shocking, and so all of that made me go, oh, I might like this. This is different. And yes, it is very different. There's a lot to talk about. But before we do, let's talk about subscribing, liking, and sharing, because that is incredibly important to this channel, and it's important to the growth of this channel. So I would appreciate each and every one of you guys for doing that. You guys are amazing, and I know you do that, and I appreciate it. But anyway, back to the game. So this is the first review I'm going to do, where I'm going to bring up the bad first, and there's an important reason for that. Because this game will suck you in. You'll experience something you've not experienced very often before, especially in a Nintendo game. As this game really starts with your character basically talking about ending it, and then they proceed to do mescaline, which if you've ever hung out with the Doors or Joe Rogan or Aaron Rodgers, you'll know what that is. It's essentially, it's a liquid that you can derive from a cactus, and it is legal, by the way. At least it was when I was in college. And so your character decides that he's gonna have one last go, one last, metaphysical, dream-like experience before he, I guess, ends it all. Before it all ends, I should say. And that's why this game really kind of got me. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I've, for one, never seen a character do it. By the way, whoever wrote this game, they've done it before. I'll tell you that because there's something really key that happens. But anyway, after your hallucinating dream, you decide that you need to get on with your mission. And that involves opening up this, dimensional gate. The Origin Gate, as it's called. And how you do this is you have to bind these temples. There's 8 temples that are in 8 different biomes. To bind them to the gate, hit the button and awaken the gate. Now, this might all seem crazy to you, but don't worry, it's not a big deal. Essentially, you just go through these 2D side-scrolling worlds while you're flying on your door. Yeah, yes, flying on your door like you're some, dime store version of Aladdin. And you reach an area, you hit a button, and you essentially take on a bunch of souls, because you have to drain the souls from the temple, then bring them back with you, and you collapse and you redo the whole thing over and over again. See, it's weird. It's a very interesting game, I thought. Well, here's the thing. The controls are awful. And apparently this is how the game is made. A game called Flappy Bird plays just like this, according to my wife. And she was surprised I'd never even heard of Flappy Bird. And I was like, I don't know, I've got taste. I don't know. I've never played it. It essentially has the same kind of mechanics, which is very annoying and very destructive on one's controller. Not to mention the fact that it is incredibly frustrating. For real, this game's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. In fact, it's overly difficult for what it is, and the payoff for it, if you ask me. Not to mention the fact that while you're trying to do some of these, very, very precise movements, and you're looking to thread the needle, so to speak, the game stutters out in very, very inopportune times. So at times it makes the game almost impossible to get past some of these difficult parts because of that. Ultimately, the game, too, also fails in finishing the story, or at least really giving you that big payoff. And trust me, when you've been playing this game for even just 2 hours, which is as long as it took me to beat it, it still requires a massive payoff, just because of how goddamn difficult the game is. And really, there's not a big payoff, and that's why I was going to discuss the story with you guys, because you can do it in about 30 seconds, I swear. It's pretty small. I'm not going to yet. Now, the graphics of this game actually, though, are really good. I was really impressed with how well this game looked and how detailed it was. And the idea of going through this guy's past traumas and reliving that to somehow overcome himself and to become something better, and maybe even find that way through hallucinogenics, I thought was great. This is a great idea. But none of that really comes to be. And you do, yes, face these past traumas, but these traumas come in the obstacle of you on your door. And you'll have to kind of, piece some things together, but at the same time, I don't know, it's not all the way an established idea. You'll go through a level called the bully. Then you have to deal with this obstacle that kind of reacts to you being there and tries to chase you while you're trying to navigate the world on this door, which has, like I said, the worst controls possible and does not react like you need it to. And apparently by finishing these levels, you're overcoming these traumas. I don't know. They don't really discuss a lot of this stuff. But what they do is paint a picture that really entices you and wants you to know more about it, and so that's why you go through these living hells that are these stages. You feel his trauma with these stages and the difficulty of these stages. But again, it, like before, doesn't really pay off. Now, I am now going to go into the story. So if anyone is interested in playing this game, you might want to stop watching now. But again, I remind you, payoff is just not worth it because it's all left to interpretation. The problem is with as vivid as the intro is and the detail they go into at the beginning of the game is about as vague as the end of the game. So again, this is the final spoiler warning. I am now going to talk about the end of the game. So essentially, the magic door that your character has or that becomes available to you, I would say right after you do the mescaline, is powered by your soul. You have to take parts of your soul in which to power the door. And when you see this guy's environment, you'll understand why you would trade parts of your soul for this door, because the environment is incredibly dark and twisted and just completely bleak. And at the same time, throughout the game, your character does talk about how they want to know the answers. They want to know the state of the origin and what happens in the origin, why the origin exists, what's behind the gate. Which kind of makes me feel like maybe that's more of a what's at the end of the life, what's, the other side, like, that whole thing. And again, this is me inferring it, but I'm wondering if they're making the comparison to trading your soul in for doing the drugs. Because you'll notice, like, further and further the game continues, the more and more of souls that are required to get from point A to point B. And again, I wonder if once you finally get to the gate and you open a gate, all these souls come out and you are incredibly happy. In fact, there's some really cool music that kind of fuses the game at the end. But you yourself get torn apart and you enter into these souls. And again, I wonder if that has some sort of comparison to ODing and finally, meeting your maker in that game, in that route. But I don't know. And that's all they leave you with. And if I'm being honest, that doesn't really even make sense. You see, one of us sitting here has actually done mescaline, partied with the Native Americans before. And let me tell you, you might feel like you're gonna die, but it's like almost impossible to OD. So that kind of doesn't make sense. Not to mention that I will say this, they really break down to the fact that this is mescaline. Because it comes from the peyote plant, like the cactus, and you do like grind it up and mix it up and cook it, I should say, like he was doing. And it's green like that. You puke after you drink it, and then you start tripping. And by the way, it's not a great experience. So if anyone's like, oh, I want to feel that, no, you don't. It's not great. Like, it can be awesome for a little bit, and then, not so good. But the other thing about it, too, and my theory of addiction and maybe potentially ODing, is the fact that mescaline isn't really addictive. You do it once, you fry yourself out, and then you don't want to ever touch it again, or maybe you do in like a year or 2 or 6 months or something like that, but it's not something I would say is addictive or something you'd want to do over and over again. So my theory really kind of doesn't make sense either. Maybe he enjoys it to get away, and then at the end he kills himself? I don't know. It's pretty dark if that's the case, but, and at the same point, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything, because if you're somehow trying to overcome these past traumas, well then everything that you did is completely moot. I don't know. I wish they explained more about the game, because the story just, it's lackluster towards the end. I have no idea why I choose to do these kind of weird-ass games that totally make it very difficult to explain. I guess I just hate myself in some form. But anyway, I've pretty much told you guys the entire story, so I'm kind of curious, what are your theories? What are your thoughts on this game? Have you played this game? I'm definitely curious about anyone who's actually played this game or has some knowledge of it. But any and all comments down below, I would truly appreciate them. I love talking to all of y'all. Anyway, guys, like always, I'm wishing you health, wealth, and above all, I hope you're truly happy, because you make me happy. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.